Hello again to another Agricola React, and today we'll be watching Mustard, spicy history from the history guy. History deserves to be remembered, and it's because on the 15th February 1768, the first mustard manufactured in America was advertised in Philadelphia. So let's just learn something about mustard. What do you know about mustard? Do you know it's a plant that grows heavy yellow flowers most of the time, I think? You don't know? And mustard is actually a seed of that plant. I might be mistaken though, because I might be thinking about some other plant. Let's just see. Okay, let's see. A bow tie, huh?
Here's an interesting trivia question. What's the connection between chocolate
Chocolate?
and mustard? Well, 265 years ago today, the connection was Benjamin Jackson became the first man to advertise prepared mustard for sale.
Benjamin Jackson?
In the American
the same
colonies.
was there president
Jackson
called
was
it?
a chocolate maker, although chocolate was slightly different than what we're used to today. But he found out the machine that he had that was used for grinding cocoa nubs could also be used to grind mustard seeds. Now, it might have been a novel use of a cocoa nub grinder, but it was certainly not the first example of the yellow condiment that, according to Statista, 286.33 million Americans consumed in 2022. The history of mustard, one of the world's most popular condiments, deserves to be remembered.
True,
In
that's
an
true.
article simply titled, "What is Mustard?" the cooking website The Spruce Eats explains. Mustard, the condiment, is made from the tiny round seeds of the mustard plant, a member of the Brassicaceae family. In order to release their flavor, the seeds must be broken, coarsely cracked, crushed, or finely ground, and then mixed with enough liquid to make a spreadable paste, which can then be used as a condiment.
Actually,
or as
it's
an
pretty
ingredient
easy
in
to
many
do.
culinary preparations.
And you can get mustard in
Brassicaceae represents a group
spice
of
aisle.
flowering plants commonly called the
yeah,
mustards.
so I was thinking.
The
It
family
looks a
includes
bit like a
cabbage,
rapeseed.
kale, cauliflower, broccoli, turnips, collards, radishes, and rapeseed.
There you go.
The condiment is generally derived from the seeds of one of three varieties: white mustard, brown mustard, and black mustard, all of which are also eaten as greens. White mustard has a lower oil content and is generally used to make mild table mustard, while brown and black mustard seeds are more pungent and contain more oil and are used to make hot mustards. In addition to prepared table
Did not know
mustard,
that.
the ground seeds are also used as spices that are often included in mayonnaise and salad dressings, as a spice for pickling vegetables, as well as on meats, and are commonly used in Indian and Asian cuisines. Mustard plants have various agricultural uses as well, often used as a cover crop to protect fields during an off-season, or used as mulch, sometimes called green manure. The plant is thought to be helpful against certain pests. The Agricultural Marketing Resource Center explains that when the mustard
amount of
plant that is still
bees
green
flying
is
around there?
incorporated into the soil and decomposition starts, glucosinolates are released. The breakdown products of these glucosinolates are thought to have biofumigant properties. Mustard plants are also used to help remove heavy metal contamination from soil.
Really?
Mustard plants naturally grow and likely originated in temperate zones of North Africa, Asia, and Europe, and human use of the plant and seeds is ancient. The Atlantic wrote in 2018, "For some Americans, a trip to the ballpark isn't complete without the bright yellow squiggle of French's mustard atop a hot dog. For the French, the slow burn of Dijon is a must-have complement to charcuterie. In the United Kingdom, Sunday's roast beef is nothing without the punch of Coleman's. Yet few realize that this condiment has been equally essential, maybe more so, for the past 6,000 years.
That's a
The
long
first spice that
time
we
to
know
be
prehistoric humans
among condiments,
used
I
to pep
guess.
up their dinners is none other than mustard. Encyclopedia Britannica notes that the use of mustard seeds as a spice is described in Indian and Sumerian texts dating back 5,000 years, suggesting domestication in approximately the same era as cotton and soybeans. Hectoin International, an online journal of medical humanities, writes that surpluses from farming the mustard seeds sparked urban development during the Sumer period of
Guys,
Mesopotamia.
this one have like third leg.
Mustard was described in Egyptian texts some 4,000 years ago. In her 1999 work, The Incredible Secrets of Mustard, culinary writer Marie Anne Toll writes that Egyptologists have discovered mustard seeds packed in elaborate jars in tombs, in the case that they were used as ritual offerings to the gods in ancient times. And culinary site Food 52 notes that mustard seeds were nestled up with King Tutankhamun in his sarcophagus, leading historians to believe that they must have been revered by the ancient Egyptians. Mention of mustard also shows up in Chinese writing at least 3,000 years ago. Anatol notes that according to archaeologists, it appears that mustard has been served both as food and medicine in China since before recorded history began. Mustard was so ubiquitous in the ancient world that mustard seeds figure prominently in many religious texts. Jesus refers to the small size of the mustard seed in the parable of the mustard seed, told in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. A verse in the Dhammapada Siddhartha Gautama has a grieving mother learn about death by searching for a mustard seed. A hadith of Muhammad says, "None shall enter paradise who has in his heart the weight of a mustard seed of pride." Greek and Roman scholars describe the plant's medicinal value. Writing in a 2021 edition of The Daily Beast, authors Cecily Wong and Dylan Thuris write, "Before mustard was a condiment, it was a poultice for bronchitis and toothaches, an ointment for skin inflammation, and a powdered additive to a soothing, sleep-inducing bath. As early as the 5th century BC, the Greeks prized the easy-to-grow plant for its antiseptic properties and ability to stimulate blood circulation. Scientist Pythagoras found that the essential oils, when applied to a wound, pulled toxins from the body, which led him to use mustard as a treatment for scorpion stings. Physician Hippocrates applied mustard plasters to chests and let the heat from the dressing loosen phlegm and ease breathing. Anatol mentions that an anonymous Greek writer declared the distressed are quickly cured and the dead resuscitated thanks to mustard, and notes that the ancient Greeks held the mustard seed and its medicinal properties in such high esteem that they attributed the discovery of mustard to Asclepius, the legendary Greek god of medicine. While it seems unlikely to waken the dead, Hectoan International writes that currently mustard is still used as a topical relief of chronic aches and pains, and even to help with bee stings. Researchers, beginning in the 1940s, analyzed phytonutrient-containing mustard seeds in order to inhibit cancer cell growth in the digestive system.
Really?
The purported medical uses of mustard are likely derived from the same reason that mustard is used as a spice. The heat from mustard is a chemical reaction. The culinary website Spruce Eats explains, mustard seeds contain a compound called sinigrin, which is a glucosinolate, a natural component of certain pungent plants, such as mustard, horseradish, and cabbage. Whenever sinigrin is crushed, the enzyme myrosinase is released, creating a mustard oil. The oil turns up the heat when the cells of the seeds are broken and mixed with cold water. The website Tasting Table notes that this heat reaction works via a different chemical method than capsaicin, the chemical that makes peppers hot. The heat sensation and the reaction with pain sensors in the mouth and nasal passages is both the reason that hot mustard tends to clear your sinuses and the reaction that ancient scholars counted on to cure illness. But there is a surprising reason that mustard tastes like mustard. A 2015 article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences determined that the family Brassicaceae evolved these chemical reactions to protect themselves from hungry caterpillars. And so you have caterpillars to thank for the spicy taste of mustard, as well as horseradish and cabbage. As the heat is caused by a chemical reaction, mustards can lose their heat over time. One reason that vinegar is commonly added to mustard is to slow the reaction and preserve the condiment's pungency. Mustard was also used as a spice in both ancient Greece and Rome. The culinary website The Nibble notes, cultivated for thousands of years, mustard was the primary spice known to Europeans before the advent of the Asian spice trade. Westerners had mustard long before pepper, which originated in India. There is a recipe for mustard in Dura Culinara, a 4th century compendium of Roman recipes, combining ground mustard seeds with vinegar, honey, and other spices to make a glaze for roast boar.
Oh, can't imagine the taste of them.
Very similar to mustard produced today. Anatol writes that Aristotle was particularly fond of mustard and is said to have insisted that game such as goose, duck, thrush, and quail be roasted with mustard to heighten its flavor before he would permit such dishes to be served at his table. The culinary website Slurp explains that mustard was brought to northern France by the Romans. There, in northern France, it was cultivated by the monks at the monastery of Saint-Germain-aux-Prés. The cultivation and production were taken up by French monasteries as early as the 9th century. Monasteries for decades sold it for a source of income. It is there where the modern name likely originates. The Nibble writes, Mosto derives from the Latin mustum, the word for grape must, or young unfermented wine, which was the liquid mixed with ground mustard seed by French monks who made the condiment. The monks' word for mustard was mustum ardens, meaning burning wine. Anatol notes that in Paris, mustard makers appeared on the royal registers for the first time in 1292. Businesses had to follow certain guidelines in the making of their products to appear on the royal registers. These registered companies were the most sought after. The website Paris Unlocked notes that the first recipe for mustard to appear in France was in the 13th century. Anatole writes that by the 14th century, the popularity of mustard in France was attested to when, in 1336, it's been written that guests at a gala given by the Duke of Burgundy consumed 70 gallons of prepared mustard in one sitting.
Gallons?
By then,
Wow.
the condiment already had an association with a particular town in Burgundy. Anatole cites a 14th century French compilation of proverbs that include the line, "There is but one town with the name Dijon, and there is no mustard, but the one from Dijon." Dijon mustard would eventually get royal protection. The Washington Post wrote in 1983, in 1634, King Louis XIV granted the 23 mustard makers of Dijon the exclusive right to make Dijon mustard for sale. Anatole describes the seriousness of Dijon mustard. By the middle of the 17th century, the mustard makers in Dijon, France, organized themselves into a guild to protect the purity and ensure the quality of the finished product. Mustard was such serious business in France that members of the Mustard Guild were forbidden to have more than one shop. That way, if a less than perfect batch of mustard reached the marketplace, its origin was easy to track.
Interesting.
The website The Good Life France notes that the 14th century Pope John XXII of Avignon was said to have been so fond of mustard that he created a new Vatican position of mustard maker to the Pope. The Daily Beast writes that the Pope then appointed his nephew, believed to be a dilettante living near Dijon, to mix all his mustards. They go on to note that the French idiom, "the Pope's mustard maker," refers to a pompous person in an insignificant role, and that came from this appointment. But mustard was not exclusive to France. Slurp notes that mustard was taken to Spain by Roman legions at about the same time it was taken to France. Anatole notes that Swedish Vikings had a tradition of putting a mustard glaze on a Christmas ham that dates back more than 1,000 years. It was originally a sacrifice to the goddess Frey. She notes that that tradition endures to this day. As to England, Anatole writes that some sources believe the Roman garrisons brought mustard to England, eating it with their camp meals and sowing the seeds on their marches, but other historians maintain that mustard seed came to British Isles in the droppings of migratory birds. In any case, mustard became popular and was cultivated throughout the British Isles. The website Darling Foods notes that the early use of mustard as a condiment in England is attested from the year 1390 in the book The Form of Cury, which was written by King Richard II's master cooks. It was prepared in the form of mustard balls, coarse ground mustard seed, combined with flour and cinnamon, moistened, rolled into balls, and dried, which are easily stored and combined with vinegar or wine to make mustard paste as needed. By the
That's an
16th
interesting
century, mustard was popular
idea
enough
as
in
well, I
England that
guess.
it is referred to in William Shakespeare's plays King Henry IV and The Taming of the Shrew. Mustard was brought from England to its colonies here in America. The newspaper Canton, Ohio Republic wrote in 2012, February 15th, 1758, was the beginning of a $350 million industry. Chocolate maker Benjamin Jackson, the only purveyor of prepared mustard in the colonies, advertised his new condiment as ready for sale in Philadelphia. It was an unlikely invention. Jackson discovered his machine that ground cocoa beans for chocolate also ground mustard seeds. He added vinegar and produced the first spreadable mustard, which was used on grilled meats. He also sold a powdered mustard as a recipe ingredient. The production of mustard was impacted by industrial methods during the 19th century as well as innovations. The culinary website Spiceography writes, in 1866, Maurice Gray and Auguste Poupon introduced their brand of Dijon mustard. That same year, Jeremiah Coleman was given the title of Queen Victoria's mustard maker. He had developed a method of grinding mustard seeds without them losing flavor. The website Norwich Tales, Myths, and More explains that Coleman made a vast empire of mustard making. In 1856, Coleman employed just 200 people. By 1862, this had risen to 600, and by the time of his death in 1898, it was closer to 2,000. The website continues. When Jeremiah James Coleman
really
was asked how he
pungent
made such a vast
mustard,
fortune from
Coleman's.
the sale of mustard, he
It's
replied,
much stronger
I
than
make
French's
my money
mustard.
from the mustard that people throw away on the sides of their plates. Still, the Coleman's model was unique. Norwich Tales, Myths, and More writes, the rapid growth of Coleman's mustard runs counter to the narrative of 19th century industrial growth that is so well known. In an age characterized by child labor, unsafe working environments, and long hours for low pay, Coleman displayed a remarkable duty of care to his employees. But the mustard many Americans most recognize didn't come about until the 20th century. The website Today I Found Out explains. Yellow mustard didn't come along until the turn of the 20th century. In 1884, two brothers by the name of Robert and George French bought a flour mill in Rochester, New York, after their previous flour mill upstate burned down. They named the mill the R.T. French Company. When Robert passed away, George's older brother, Francis, came aboard to help the family business. In 1904, George began experimenting with creamy salad mustard. He added turmeric to the traditional recipe for added presentation and color. French's new mustard reveals a surprise. Today I found out
That's a spicy sandwich.
A common
Is that
misconception
tuna?
is that yellow mustard
Tuna
is yellow because of the
jalapeno,
mustard
ketchup
seed.
and mustard?
That's
Interesting.
not true. The mustard seed is a dullish gray-brown color. The striking bold yellow color actually comes from the rootstock of a plant called turmeric. Anatole notes that the Frenches premiered their new creamy yellow mustard at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904, where purportedly the sausage called a hot dog first met the condiment that would define an American classic dish. World mustard consumption continued to grow in the 20th century. You might have heard recently about a mustard shortage. For many reasons, including the reduction in charcoal production in France and disruptions due to the Second World War, much of the mustard seed production that used to occur in Western Europe was moved to North America in the latter half of the 20th century. And today, Canada is the world's largest exporter of mustard seed.
Really?
But in 2021, Canada had a drought that significantly reduced their mustard seed production, and that caused a shortage in Dijon, France. Still thought of as the world's capital of mustard making, Dijon today imports about 80% of its mustard seed from Canada. Supplies were further disrupted by supply chain problems that came about in 2021 and 22, and the war in Ukraine, which cut off supplies from Russia, which is one of the world's largest producers of mustard seeds. But in 2022, Canada had a good mustard seed crop, and that has eased concerns over a shortage and helped to guarantee that the condiment that has been used throughout history, from cavemen to kings, will continue to add spice to humanity's future.
Hopefully.
I hope you enjoyed this episode
Thank
of The
you.
History Guy. Check out our community on thehistoryguyguild.locals.com, our webpage.
Okay. So, do you like mustard? I do like mustard. I don't eat it as much as I would be thinking I would. But no, a good mustard on like a roast sausage. Yum, 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 yum. Yeah, that's a good thing. And what else? Yeah, it's depending on what kind of... There's different mustards. You go to Poland to the stores and you see like multiple mustards as well. And but what I really like is when I always use mustard seeds to pickle anything, like onions and stuff like that. So I always like to, when I finish the jar of pickled onions, I always fish up the mustard seeds from it. I really like pickled mustard seeds. I just have to do just mustard seeds on their own in the jar one time. I like the fact that they like, so it's kind of soaked with the juices and stuff, that when you bite them, they'll like this. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow. Bye!